Are you guys ready? So I'll start with the first one. I think the question is pre-workout safe before working out? I'm assuming they mean a drink. And so, I look at ingredients. I'm not a fan of, even though caffeine can obviously boost the energy a little bit, it also stresses out the heart a little bit more. So I don't do pre-workout drinks. I do intermittent fasting. So I try to work out actually on a fairly empty stomach, and I seem to have more energy. But thoughts on that?
And I use liquid ketones.
Oh yeah, exogenous ketones. You can buy them about $5 each.
It's beta hydroxybutyrate, and that's what happens when you fast. But you're basically getting a dose of ketones that would raise your level to about the level you get of water fasting for 4 days, and it gets there in about within 30 minutes. And and you get about 4 to 5 hours. I took one before we started.
I just did now when I went to the restaurant. There are little things called exogenous ketones, and it's straight ketones. And so that's a good pre-workout thing as well, because you're already in ketosis for that. Next question. Oh, this person put like 4 in one thread, so I don't know about this one. Holy smokes. Does cinnamon water help metabolism? I would personally say avoid some of those types of things. Yes or no? I guess we'll go quick.
Does cinnamon water affect metabolism?
I guess cinnamon in the water could increase...
Cinnamon can modulate and help with carbohydrate metabolism. Okay. It is important, but I don't know. I think it sounds like more of a marketing gimmick.
Yeah, exactly. And so this person is text number 2. I'm just reading off all of them. What do you plan ahead to avoid bad food choices when an event, stress, or anxiety trigger eating? What to do to plan ahead? Usually I try to eat a little bit before I go to the event, and so I'm not tempted with the taste of nuts and honey. Remember that commercial with the little bee? So I try to eat a little bit beforehand, or believe it or not, the power of the made-up mind. I mean, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to continue on this fast. I'm not going to eat this. It's really easy for me to get through, but
yeah, we try to eat ahead, and then we bring our own food. You already know
true.
that.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny. I bring my own food too, and people are like, why'd you bring your own food? Well, also, it depends. I'm trying to get rid of seed oils and things, and just really, when you're trying to really fine-tune your diet, you don't want to have all these little, because there's always a potluck, there's always a party, there's always a barbecue, there's always a birthday. It seems like it's never ending. And so you do have to make a point to really make the difference. So can protein drinks replace clean meat to support adequate protein in the diet? I know that's why they call it isolated proteins, because they're isolating the protein from the meat into the protein powder. Personally, I think as God created it, is probably always the best route, because you also want those active enzymes
absolutely
with the meat.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Okay, so that was pretty easy. And if you always, Dr. Paul had a good example of how much protein. The best way to remember is probably a half a gram per your body weight. So if I'm at 200 pounds, I'll shoot for 100 grams.
Yeah, and again, I was doing it in kilos, but that's just a kilo is 2.2 pounds. So it's roughly the same. Yeah.
And with protein, you do have to be a little strategic, because it's not you don't take in as much protein as you think with our carbohydrate-rich culture. You have to be real strategic on that.
Yeah, they give you the proteins, by the way, with a lot of additional carbs on top of that.
Yeah.
So look for lower carb sources of those protein supplements. Yeah.
For me, just a trick, I like to have a lot of fresh caught tuna on hand. So just a can of tuna, a lot of grams of protein, pretty clean right there. What plant foods should be avoided to help with autoimmune disease? Again, I'll let you take it, but I think it's going to have to be a process of elimination, because some of the properties are different.
And back, I don't know, 30-something years ago, I put people on complete restriction. I took them off everything. I put them on a fast, and then I would add one food in at a time.
And see what triggered it.
It took forever. Okay, but later, when we came out with some IgG food sensitivity testing, that made it a lot easier for me.
Yep.
But the benefits of that is tremendous.
And do you guys know that cafe in Santa Clarita that's pretty healthy, supposedly? What's it called, Aubrey? Get Fresh? Or no? Eat Real. So I would go there every time. I'm like, I'm not feeling well. Get the same chicken sandwich. And one day I had a salad at a place with arugula on it. And it's the arugula that no matter how I eat it, I just feel like I'm getting the flu for like 30 minutes. Okay. So I cut out arugula, and there goes that problem. Isn't
and then
that
the other thing is, when you're eating out, is they're not necessarily going to be eating or serving the best oils. Okay, it's seed oils, and well, it's a big deal. They're natural. If you're going to take two tablespoons of soybean oil, you're going to be eating this amount of soybeans. Not natural at all. Or, 2 tablespoons of sunflower seed oil. Well, this much shelled sunflower seeds. Well, I wouldn't eat that much in a year, okay? But we think that's okay. The omega-6s are so toxic. Linoleic acid. Now, linoleic acid is essential fat. Okay, we need it, but we have so much.
Moderation.
We've gone from 5% or less in this country as far as our consumption of seed oils. Now we're all but 5%. Okay, we're almost all seed oils. So seed oils, why are they bad? Just real in a quick nutshell. They cause insulin resistance. They come in the back door. They get burned in the mitochondria. They produce all these free radicals. They damage your mitochondria, and that is behind, as I mentioned at the beginning, almost every disease I treat. And so people think, well, I'm not even eating carbs. How could that happen? If I eat some of those foods, I will feel lousy. It ruins my day. Okay, and yet everything was supposedly healthy, and it was from some vegan organic place.
Yeah, and I was just telling him of our experience. We went, the Odyssey restaurant, and me and Morgan went on a date there a month ago. I'm like, I'm going to eat healthy and feel good, and I felt terrible. It was steamed, I think, asparagus or Brussels sprouts, and a side of a few different sides of steak. Like, how do I feel? But all the oil those asparagus were cooked in, and then the steak, the sauce, each of those had their vegetable oils. And normally asparagus and steak, I'm good, but I felt my stomach hurt. I couldn't sleep well. So, it's sad, but eating out is just, you got to be really strategic. Okay, now we're going to text number 3. Okay, we should probably stop the texting, see if I can catch up. What does 5-minute HIIT look like? HIIT is high intensity interval training. So, can you show us an example? No. Well, you do squats.
Okay, yeah. So, I think, who was it? Dr. Bush, who did some of the studies on this, but they just chose 4 exercises. So these are too easy. If I do them, I'm going to do them with some weights in my hand, but it's basically this. So, and I'm doing like, say you do 15 of those, and then I'm 2, 3, 4, 6, okay, and then I do 15 of those, and then I'm back to that. Okay, so if I did 15 seconds, 15 reps, okay, of each one, okay, and there's 4 exercises, well, there's 4 minutes right there, okay, and boom, I'm done, okay, or, I want to do a little bit more, okay, well, just jump down and start doing some push-ups, or you get down on the floor and you're doing scissor kicks, and then you're doing some crunches, and then you're doing some jump over and do some mountain climbers, or you can do some, running in place, high knees. You can do some cross-country, like that.
You guys getting good examples.
Okay,
today,
there we go.
Yeah. But it's funny, on high-intensity interval training, it's also based on creation. We are created, because I remember back in construction, I grab a heavy jackhammer, 150-pound jackhammer, pick it up, put some pipe above. We're created to do these things, and we don't do them now. So that's why we have to incorporate them into our life, because we're not just it's counterproductive. So that was text number 3. This is text number 4. Same question, but I think we already answered that. That's his 5-minute hit. Text number 5, Alfred Gochez. Did I pronounce that right? Okay, C. Morgan for the long sleeve brand new t-shirt, Faith t-shirt. Well, maybe I should have said your name, but this is a good question. How do you feel about smartphone usage and health? My thought is we need to severely limit it even more, beginning with me, but unfortunately, it's,
Yeah, it's hard to avoid. There's a lot of research that's been done on EMFs.
You know what that is? The transmitting. I never hold it to
electromagnetic
my ear.
fields, and again, a lot of that has just been highly censored. And I personally know of a doctor that has been very outspoken on that. And my gosh, the government was coming after him, and because you're talking about $1 trillion industry. Okay, this is the entire globe, and they're wanting to ramp up, 5G. Well, let's go even beyond that. It does affect people, and by the time all this comes out, I'm sorry, another generation has passed, and it does damage. It does affect your mitochondria.
I actually stopped when I would get heat. My face would get hot, so I don't even have the phone. And I stopped the watch because I would get my hand. Is that even the Apple Watch? It's like it's hot. I don't like it. So yeah, we don't know the ramifications. I would avoid as much as possible, for sure. Text number 6. Help me keep track of these, Morgan. Number 6 is rheumatoid arthritis reversible. When I study that, depends on how far you're in. It's like some cancer is reversible, but if you're at the end stages,
it's a very complex issue. There's multiple factors. You can't just simplify it. But I have had patients that have gone into remission, and they've been actually even doing intermittent fasting.
Oh, for sure.
And they would tell me, "Oh my gosh, I was." I was getting my injections every week, and I was having pain coming on pretty strong near the next injection. But anyway, it was a couple, and they were doing it together, kind of, we'll do this, and commit ourselves to doing like a 4-day water fast. But after they did that, I don't know, several times, not consecutive, but they did that, he said, I am going, not 1 week, I'm going a month, and I'm not even needing my injection now. So he completely went off of that, but it had to do with, again, not just the intermittent fasting, but I changed his diet, optimized that, the microbiome, and I took him off all of these things that we're adding. So there's no written guarantee. But nothing ventured, nothing gained, okay? No one had ever tried that. Mm-hmm. No one had ever suggested. I had another rheumatoid arthritic. She came in and she said, "Oh, doctor," she says, "I'm in my second 7-day water fast." And I go, "What?" And she says, "Oh, you told me that you did that years ago with some patients." I go, "Yeah, but I didn't tell you to do it." She says, "Well, I wanted to do it." And she says, "And I felt so good. It was the first time I'd felt this way in years. And so I wanted to do it again just to get that feeling." She goes, "Because all my pain, my inflammation went down. It was great." And then the next time I saw her, months later, she goes, "Oh, I'm in my third 7-day water fast." And I thought, whoa, I'm not encouraged.
You create a monster.
Yeah. I said, well, take it easy, But she also had diabetes, so it actually helped control that. Her A1C was coming way down. Her weight was in control. She was feeling a lot better.
It's funny. I was just going to say, the best I've ever felt is 5-6 days into a water fast. Like if I could stay there. But you can't because you have to keep eating. So, but just so you know, localized inflammation is important. It's our body repairing. But chronic inflammation is often due to an immune response. Our body's trying to fight something. And that's with food and lifestyle play a huge role in that.
Right, and I was talking about that at the very beginning with that wheel.
Yep.
And chronic inflammation was one of those things that just tears your body down and causes it to age. Mm-hmm. But if you can block those things, and if you can stop them, Okay, and the fasting is one of those things that actually turns that off. I was just about to, tell about that, but those switches, those epigenetic switches, it turns off inflammatory genes. Okay, and you get, NLRP3 inflammasome, big word. Okay, well, that's involved with a lot of chronic inflammatory process, including cancer cells, but it flips that off. And it actually flips off oncogenes, cancer-causing genes. It flips on tumor suppressor genes. Wow, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, just to break down what he said earlier, to simplify the importance of epigenetics, your genetics load the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Absolutely.
So genetics, sure, you can be predispositioned to cancer because your mom was in a certain way, the gene, but that doesn't mean that gene's going to be expressed. It can be actually muted. And then also at the beginning, when he said everything happens in the mitochondria, that's the cell, that's the little part in the cell, looks like a capsule. And it produces ATP, adenosine triphosphate energy. And so everything's affected at that cellular level. And fasting, autophagy, cleans everything at the cellular level.
Absolutely. And so the mitochondria producing that ATP, that is why you are existing. That's why you're living. That's why you're breathing right now. Okay. And you produce massive amounts of ATP per second. So much ATP that you match your body weight within a matter of, minutes, if not less. Okay. So when you take in oxygen, where does it go? Well, it goes to my lungs. Then what? It goes to your bloodstream, into your cell. Then where? Mitochondria. Its function is to just accept an electron. That's it. And if that stops, that's what happens when you stop breathing.
Oh, yeah.
You stop breathing and you lose that electron passing on, and you're dead because you don't have ATP. But that's because you're producing so much. But that is what the mitochondria is about. So if you damage that mitochondria in any way, that cell becomes less functional. Mm-hmm. If you have a group of cells, that's a tissue, okay, and it becomes dysfunctional, and an organ becomes dysfunctional, and the next thing it's entire you. But that's going on in every cell in your body, these little mitochondria.
Yep, true. I like Troy's question. I fasted and my heart started pounding on day 2. What might that be? A symptom of it's water fasting. My guess is electrolytes. Yeah,
exactly. And you can do a simple electrolyte drink. I mean, I use liquid IV. I use the sugar-free variety, but you can use that, or just a glass of good water, lime or lemon wedge, and a little pinch of sea salt, stirred up, and you have a quick little electrolyte drink. And usually that's in the very beginning.
Yeah. People don't realize how important electrolytes are. Actually, by the name, they're sending electronic signals to the heart. And so palpitations, tired, ice, it's like you're low in magnesium, potassium, sodium. So taking those electrolytes during fasting is definitely good. So that was number 7. Number 8, greatest way to get off hypertension medication. I'll leave this up to you. It depends, of course, what type of medication it is, and talking with your physician, usually weaning off, but also fasting, incorporated with diet and lifestyle changes and weight loss would be good. But what do you do?
Everything that I mentioned about whole foods and trying to just approach it from whole foods, eating the way your vehicle was designed. That's what I do. And as that takes place, their weight starts dropping. Even if your weight dropped down 10 or 15 pounds, it can make a difference in your blood pressure. So I've had patients that were out of control diabetic on medication. I put them on intermittent fasting, not all the time. They went off of all their hypertensive medication completely. That's another effect from intermittent fasting. And they also went off of all their diabetic medication. Their A1C actually came down to better than mine, and which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And And they lost some weight, and they said, "Gosh, this is the easiest thing I've ever done." But they were off their diabetic med, they were off of their hypertensive med, and it was simple. Okay, great, have a good life. That was it.
But talk to your physician too, because let's say you decide to fast. Fasting lowers blood pressure, and if you're also taking medication to lower blood pressure, that could be an interesting combination.
You need to backpedal.
Yeah. And when he mentioned hypertension, what were we just talking about? If it comes to me, I'll remember. Let's see, what was that, number 7? Number 8, if you're eating a high-protein or carnivore diet, how important is it to get grass-fed, free-range, wild-caught, etc.? I'm pretty sure you're going to say important for sure, but also, not that we don't have enough to worry about, but grass-fed, how about now grass-finished? Did you know you can have grass-fed, but it can be fed all kinds of junk 3 months before being butchered? So now it has to be grass-fed and grass-finished. I mean, just the loopholes in these things drive me crazy.
Yeah, well, and is it grass-fed on
GMO?
Out there, what's growing? Or is it just, we're feeding it in the trough?
Yeah.
Okay, that's grass-fed. Okay, there's a little bit of difference there, too.
But clean as possible. I mean.
But you get... you get different changes in the meat.
The reason is because they'll inject the steer with growth hormone and antibiotics and other things, and ultimately what you eat, what they are injected with, is going to be in the meat. And and then if they're eating GMO corn, genetically modified, the grain, then the modifications, we're ingesting that. If they're sprayed with glyphosate, which is Roundup, then we're ingesting that along with the growth hormones and the antibiotics. And so just clean meat when possible is hard, but it does get frustrating and confusing. Was that number 8? Number 9. Oh, well, that's pretty interesting. I haven't eaten carbs in years. Do you need to eat carbs to survive? I don't believe carbs are essential. I believe fat and protein are.
Fat and protein are essential. Carbs are not. You can manufacture carbs from, the gluconeogenesis.
Oh, but he eats vegetables, so that's it.
Yeah, but those are carbs. Yeah. And again, I'm not anti-carb. I eat carbs, but it's the types of carbs, and trying to stay away from the processed carbs. We have nothing but, our diets are 70 to 80% carbs. Pretty low on the protein, and if we do eat the fats, they're basically the bad fats that we were talking about, mostly the seed oils.
And so, for many of you don't know, rice, bread, pasta, cookies, crackers, right? Carbohydrates that are highly processed. I mean, if you can get some clean sourdough with 3 ingredients, I actually eat, believe it or not, sometimes French toast. 1 piece of Ezekiel bread, low sodium, and 3 organic eggs. Cook that French toast, put some jelly on it without any sugar in it.
Yeah, and actually that's not necessarily processed. So if you're looking at Ezekiel bread, I mean, we have whole grain, we have cracked grain.
Doesn't taste that great though.
Huh?
Doesn't taste too good.
Yeah. Okay. Whole grain, cracked grain, split grain, sprouted grain. Ezekiel is a sprouted grain.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't have any flour. Okay, what's the difference? If you take whole wheat or white bread over here, it goes into your bloodstream like this. In fact, faster than eating out of the sugar bowl. Okay, it will spike your glucose. Most people don't know that. Mm-hmm. But if you look even on the bag, I saw it recently on Ezekiel bread, looking at a package, I go, oh, they put the glycemic index right there. Mm-hmm. And it was 36. Well, you can double that. 72, 73 to get what's in what's called whole wheat bread. Okay, that's processed. People say, well, that's natural. I go, no, high-speed mills, they came about, just a couple centuries ago. We had whole grain.
Yeah, a couple decades.
That's what Jesus ate, the whole grain.
So, and with high glycemic index, it's the rate at which the carbohydrate releases insulin into your blood. So the higher on the index, the higher that insulin spike's going to go.
So glucose is 100 and everything is compared on its way down. So if we have whole grain at 36 and Whole wheat up here at 73. Okay.
Yeah, not too bad. And it's funny when he was mentioning the Ozempic that's so popular right now, GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, there's 1 and 2, but it actually stimulates falsely glucagon. And so you think you're hungry. I mean, you're not hungry anymore, but really your body still needs the nutrients. And I think that's why the body's also depleting a lot. I mean, they look like they're on a sick a lot of times because of the no protein that's coming in. You know?
Yeah, sarcopenia.
Okay, number 10 winner for the $100 Sprouts card. Name is... But again, if you need one, we can get you one. I can get you a few. We're glad to help. Is it Celeste? Celeste? Oh, Celeste. Oh, she's back there. Celeste. Okay. Is it okay if I read your question, or you want me? I don't have to. You can still win. It's okay? Maybe you can clarify too, Kim, does the alcohol have the same effect as beer for sleep? But beer is alcohol. So I think it really affects
the different
sleep.
Yeah, the different beverages, they, for the most part, they just have differing amounts of water added. Sure. And so, beer, well, it's light beer. It has the same amount of alcohol in it. And if you do the math anyway, it just has the same effect.
Alcohol is, I think, one of the worst things for sleep disruption.
Yeah.
I mean,
in fact, any textbook on sleep medicine is going to say, boom, nix that.
All right. Well, she won the $100 gift card. How do I reduce LDL naturally? And is LDL supposedly the bad guy?
Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'd want to reduce it, but let's say if somebody does.
Okay, so LDL is a low-density lipoprotein, and there's more than one type of LDL.
Oh, big particle size?
When we do the NMR lipoprofile, which you're familiar with, and so we look at that, there's many of them, but just to try and answer that, there's large, fluffy, buoyant, pattern A, small, hard, dense, pattern B. That cholesterol, the pattern B, is what we find oxidized and ending up in the wall. What drives pattern B production? Glucose, sugar. So
I think that's the main culprit.
And the large, fluffy, buoyant, okay, it's fat. Okay.
And that's a good one to have.
Whoa. But not all fat's good. Okay. And so it gets a little, there's too many studies to quote and go into. And even in the last year, there was oh my gosh, when was it? It was just, and just in the last year, we were looking at LDL particles. Okay, we're going to start here. And all these people, it was nearly 180,000 that were looked at over a 12-year period of time. And as time went on, this is your longevity. So you don't want to be on this curve. You want to be on this one up here. So these two bottom lines coming down like this, well, that was the below 70 to 99, and the other one below that was below 70. Well, what are the national standards for lowering LDL cholesterol? You have to get it below 100. Well, if you look at the line above that one, it was actually 190, okay? And then it was 100 to 130, 130, 160. It went up to almost to 190. So, well, wait a minute. That just doesn't make sense. Well, that's right. And that's why we have a lot more to investigate. The problem is not just the cholesterol. Pastor Shane mentioned that cholesterol is super important. Okay, it's one of the most important molecules in your body. In fact, you die if you don't have cholesterol. If you lower it too low, that was why it would explain. If you lower it too low, your
Side effects.
Your mortality, your all-cause mortality goes up. And cholesterol is being packaged by your liver. And if you don't take it in dietary-wise, your liver is going to manufacture and make it. And what for? Well, it pushes all those vehicles, they're called lipoproteins. They're going to push them out, LDL, HDL, VLDL, and it's going to deliver it. Now, what for? The cell needs it. Every cell in your body is made of a bilipid protein layer. That's what the cell walls are made of. And it's very organized in the structure. But it also needs some cholesterol in it. So if you frame this room and the building inspector comes in and says, not enough cholesterol, tear it down, doesn't meet code. Okay, why? Because the cell will die. It actually needs the cholesterol as part of the functioning of the cell. So is that all cells? Yeah, all cells. Okay, so that's why we need fat and protein, and we need the cholesterol in there. Well, why is it so bad? Cholesterol doesn't get into that wall until you take down the protective coating inside your blood vessels. It's the endothelium is lined with something called glycocalyx. I know I'm getting into a rabbit trail here.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Well, the endothelium is the lining of the cell, or the lining of the vessel, and that's where the damage is.
So the endothelium is the lining of your blood cell, and there's something called glycocalyx, and if you thin that out and remove it, and you get these patchy areas with no glycocalyx, that is when the wall gets dinged. Up to that point, those red blood cells and white blood cells, platelets, and all those factors, they don't really touch the wall itself. And what is glycocalyx? It's the same structure you find when you pick a fish up out of the stream. That slime, that is glycocalyx. Well, the fish just, nothing sticks to it. It's protecting that fish. And the same thing with every square millimeter of your endothelium, your arteries, okay, are lined with this. So that stuff never touches. If you thin it out, boom, that's when it starts happening. So the little dings, nicks, rending of the fabric, so to speak, that is going to create little platelets to come in, try to repair it, and oxidized LDL cholesterol, mostly pattern B, ends up in that wall. And it sets off, because it's oxidized, by the way, it has to be oxidized first. It sets off this inflammatory process, and that's how you get arterial sclerosis and plaque. Now, this thing about the glycocalyx and the thinning and all that, that's relatively new research, but it hasn't come down, into being taught. Doctors are basically told the main thing is just lowering LDL cholesterol. And it's not necessarily the case around the world. And there's not, just because, the majority of people believe in it, there's a consensus, doesn't mean it's real or right. We have to go back, again, going back to the studies that we based everything on. Why do the Eskimos have no heart disease, but they're eating high amounts of fat? Okay, why is this? Or, we were talking about the 7-country study. Wow, how come that information never came out? Well, there's a lot of money tied into this.
Yeah, and the medical industry usually is about 20 years behind.
Yes.
I don't know if you knew that, but all this breaking research, they're still back 20 years. So it takes time to get cut up. That's why they're still recommending statins. Statins actually tell your liver to stop producing cholesterol. So there might be a time and a place where you can talk to your doctor about that, but that's not the answer necessarily. And I could be wrong, but I believe when they studied all of the centenarians that are over 100, they all had high cholesterol and high LDL. Okay, so they fit into those curves those lines that I was just showing you. The centenarians, and this was a 35-year-old Swedish study. Actually, there's more than one. There's lots of them on the centenarians, and they found out the biggest predictor was the HDL. And so we have a lot more newer studies showing HDL. So what do the insurance companies look at? They want to look at your total cholesterol HDL ratio. But the cholesterol profile that
99% of everyone out there is getting. It's the same test I was using 35 plus years ago. It hasn't changed any. But what we mentioned earlier was the lipo profile, the NMR.
What he's mentioning is a small particle size has a tendency to stick easier. The big fluffy particle size doesn't stick. Don't get confusing, but it's a little confusing. Also, I remember what I was going to tell you. Did you know 100 calories from broccoli has more protein than 100 calories from steak? Yep. Test it. Look at. Now, obviously, a big steak's going to have more protein, but if you take 100 calories of steak, a little bit, 100 calories of broccoli, that broccoli is going to have more protein. So you can get it from the other things.
It's a lot of broccoli, by the way.
That is a lot of broccoli. 100 calories of broccoli is a lot of broccoli. Okay, this might, again, we're going to get through these all, we'll have to go pretty quick, and you need to get your kids, and you can come back in if you would like. What do you suggest in a sleep habit? I have trouble sleeping throughout the night. I wake up every hour. So I'll let you take it, but what I found, what really helps is, like you talked about earlier, if you have any caffeine, have it in the morning because there's a half-life, and it still will mess up your sleep at night.
At least 6 hours.
At least 6 hours, nothing. I wouldn't even eat. If I was trying to get good sleep, I would stop eating hours before bedtime. And also, this before you go to bed is not a good idea.
Yeah, you need at least 3 to 4 hours after your last meal. That's another thing where people are having trouble with losing weight. Oh, I'm just eating one meal a day. And I go, and what time? And I go, as soon as I get home from work. And I go, then when do you go to bed? About an hour or 2 hours later. And I go, so you're one meal a day? I go, that's the sumo formula. That's what sumo wrestlers. I go, they'll eat this huge meal at bedtime. That's it, okay? And they might work out all day. They're athletes, okay? They work out, but they gain weight on purpose.
Right. Okay, this might just be the quick answer because we could go deep on this one too. The benefits of infrared sauna, basically red light therapy. I know it affects the body.
All right. So near infrared, as opposed to longer wave, far infrared, that would be better as far as mitochondrial benefits. If you do this, even the Swedish saunas, those are fine. But the heat, it causes heat shock proteins. It causes changes. This is one of those stressors that I mentioned.
Hormesis, a stressor.
You stress the body. You create these proteins, and it actually has anti-inflammatory effects. Has tremendous cardiovascular effects. Studies on reversing, improving heart failure patients. Okay, blood pressure changes and increasing longevity. So this is really big as far as, do the saunas help and the near infrared and just get the full spectrum, okay? But it is actually beneficial.
Yep, I agree. And then have you heard of sea moss, and is it good to take? I mean, other than the iodine benefits, and the thing with supplements is nothing is a magic pill. Everybody wants to, can I take this? Get your diet and activity and all that in check, and then sure, have some seaweed if you want.
Have a variety.
Have a variety. But, I mean, sea moss is not, other than the standard properties of the greens and the chlorophyll and the iodine.
Right. And so you want a little bit of everything.
Yeah, so it can't hurt, but that's not going to be the answer in and of itself. Best foods to eat for hair and scalp issues, assuming probably a woman losing hair.
Best foods.
How effective can the food be in combating other factors of stress and genetics? And I think it's everything you talked about. So.
No, the diet is the key with the hair, and it's also balancing hormones and making sure there's a lot to be said about, making sure your adrenals are functioning well, which affect your thyroid, and your thyroid affects everything. And where are the thyroid receptors, T3 receptors? At the mitochondria. That's what turns the factory on. If you don't have enough, you're low thyroid. I'm so sluggish. I can't think. Gee, my bowels don't move. My skin is dry. Those are all functions of various tissues and cells based upon mitochondrial function. So if the mitochondria aren't healthy, okay, boom. But it's all about the thyroid.
So yeah, there's nothing you could take specifically for that. It would be getting the whole body healthy and a reset. Start working on these areas we talked about slowly and make the changes and wean off all the things that you should wean off of. What is the latest length of time to eat before bed? They recommend a minimum of 3 hours. But I know people have went 6 hours, and the longer you go, actually, the better. Like if sometimes when I do a water fast, the deepest, best sleep in the world is when fasting. So probably because what happens, you eat, and then now the body's processing, assimilating, digesting, breaking down. You've got all this energy. The blood is flowing again, so it makes it really hard for the body to rest.
One of your body's most energy-consuming process is digestion. And so you're like, your body is not resting while you're sleeping.
No, it's repairing, right? Repairing, working, and resting.
Yeah, and so you want that really dialed down by the time you get in, because your brain needs to restore itself, and it needs to clear itself out. Your brain, your cells have waste material. It's called poo anyway. It exits your body, but your brain has the same waste material, but it empties through the cerebral spinal fluid, the lymphatics. And so when is it going to do that? When you sleep. What happens if you don't sleep?
Yeah, exactly. I think we touched base on this, but just to remind you, what do you recommend for a diabetic to eat to lower weight and lower blood sugar? This is one case where I would highly recommend the ketogenic diet. Because diabetes is a result of insulin spike, and you've been eating carbs so much and the body's now resistant. One of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard of is insulin's the problem because it's so much. Your body is resistant to it, so you're going to go to the doctor and they're going to give you more insulin. It makes no sense, but they have to because they're injecting. You got to have insulin. So the best thing to do, I would incorporate intermittent fasting, which is you only eat within maybe a 6-hour window, again, my opinion, and then you have all the healthy God-given, fish, lean meat. I would just eat vegetables and protein if I was trying to do something like this, maybe a little bit of fruit. But
and basically, the whole food diet that I was mentioning, and I mentioned about the protein and the vegetables and slowing down gastric emptying, all of that is key. The intermittent fasting, I will put people on that. I say you don't have to be on it 7/7. You could do it 4 days a week, 5 days a week. I tell them to change it up, do different routines. Basically, I look at a lower carb, healthy carb, adequate protein type diet with healthy fats. It's kind of the Mediterranean, but I'm dialing down all of those high glucose carbs. Starches.
And if you need to leave and you got a ticket, see Morgan in the back. She's got the shirts for you. Also, if this was your question, diabetic, if you want a lot more information, you grab one of Dr. Paul's books, or also watch a lot of Dr. Jason Fung's videos. I've actually have on Audible the complete guide on fasting, and it's like 8 hours, and it goes in deep of how it can reverse. Type 2 diabetes is actually, we're creating it by our lifestyle. It's not woke up someday and I have this disease. It's over time, and it can be reversed big time. Yeah. Any benefit of olive oil and avocado oil being a seed oil? Well, avocado's from the avocado.
It is a type of seed oil.
Yeah,
and it's oleic acid. You have some of these others that have high oleic acid. But again,
I think it's in the processing, right? Because if they say cold pressed olive oil, you're taking the olives and you're cold pressing it. Here's your oil. With the seed oils, you're running it through a chemical process. All this goop comes out. They convert it to this. Then they run it through this solvent system to get this oil left over. So I think it's in the processing. And what it does, it shoots the omega-6 ratio way off chart.
Yeah, so you do want to get extra virgin cold pressed. Okay. People have been cutting their oil, and they've been cutting it with canola. I saw a label that said olive oil, and at the bottom, Okay, in fine print it said guaranteed to contain at least 10% olive oil. It wasn't. It was canola oil. Okay, and this is by a big brand anyway. So they do that. But the studies on the polyphenols, when you process it, and it's not extra virgin, but they found that these polyphenols had incredible cardiovascular benefits and protection. Okay, in them. So, and
that's why I don't personally call them seed oils. I call them processed oils. I try to avoid the processed oils that are not natural. They're actually not in their natural state. You don't have a canola seed or a safflower seed or a sunflower seed. You can watch videos on how they're produced. You'll get sick. It's amazing. Let's see. Oh boy. You could probably ask some of these too afterward to Dr. Paul, because regarding menopause, HRT or HRT, that's a whole, you have to look at their whole profile. HRT's hormone replacement therapy. So sometimes with menopause, estrogen, with men needing testosterone, and you probably have to look at the blood panel. What's their lifestyle? What are their symptoms?
I never just look at hormones.
Yeah, you'd have to look
at again, I go back to the nutrition. And it's like guys with testosterone. They go, well, I just want testosterone. I go, that's not your problem. I had a guy that, he was hypertensive, diabetic, sleep apnea, and very obese. And after 1 year, I told him, I said, he says, man, I feel great. Okay, he's off all of his medications. Everything, his sleep apnea is gone. And he says, man, I feel like my 30-year-old son. He was 58 at the time. And I said, well, you should feel good because I tested your testosterone when I met you. And he goes, you did? And I go, yeah, it was like, you had a level of like 200. And what is it now? And I go, it's like 680.
That's good.
And okay, and again, that's actually above the average for when testosterone peaks in a young guy, 25, 26, something like that. Well, that's higher than the average, okay? So he felt good, and I thought, yeah, wow, that was amazing. But I never told him I tested him, but I always look at everything. But again, all I did was changed his diet.
Yeah. Because once we just prescribe a hormone, we're not sure if that's going to work. Usually I don't talk about things like this, but it's a health seminar. I'm glad I met Pastor Paul, told you, Dr. Paul. Before I did, I shared with him that my local doctor, Abram knows I was not in a good spot, just what's going on. I'm tired and just gaining weight. And he put me on testosterone cypionate. And he gave me everything. I told him 2 needles so I can use one to load, because it dulls it, and then you put another one on for the sharp. And then because I'm used to inject, and for 3 weeks I was like, I need to stop. I'm moody, I'm angry, I can't sleep well, I feel 10 times worse. And then I met you, and you're like, well, we got to look a lot more than just your doctor just said start taking this. Just because. So when you start looking at the diet, the stress, taking time off, and you can get that level to rise. So I only did it for 3 weeks. Because he said, yeah, this is probably what you need. And my testosterone was 230, which was actually kind of low, but it was later in the day. I wasn't in a fasted state. You have to do it in the morning when it's at the highest peak. And you also have to look at what's free testosterone, not the total testosterone. You want to know how much testosterone is actually active. And so that added a whole new life. Yeah, so my point was, you don't just jump into try this, because I was not in a good spot. I don't want to come to church. I don't want to preach anymore. All from this little hormone, 100 milligrams of cypionate, 100 milligrams a week, and But I don't think it's wrong if it's working for some people. As I get older, I might need to look into that too.
There are people where it's appropriate, and there's other things that I do to help with that, and even the exercise that will stir up and stimulate testosterone. We mentioned even the HIIT workouts. Well, that increases testosterone. Wow, Fasting does, right? Growth hormone? Yeah. There is some research on that as well. Okay. There is. Okay. I think if I got to that. Yeah. 2 more giveaways. The skill. That's actually the next person come up. Oh my goodness. Luis. Okay. I don't know if he'll want it. Maybe I should.
Oh, one? Okay. Well, so I don't want to answer his questions. What to eat to treat a fever? Believe it or not, they used to fast. I mean, the best thing to do is to let your body heal itself and not eat.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have.
Do you want me to comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so where does the fever come from? Well, that's
your body,
that's
right?
The virus is causing the fever. No, your body's causing the fever. Why? If you elevate the temperature a little bit,
kills the virus.
It actually stirs up the immune system. It's better at fighting it. So what happened? Well, the immune system said, hey, we need to fight this thing. Let's turn on, this is at the hypothalamic level, turns on your thermostat and says, raise it up a couple notches. Okay? And so that's all because of your immune system. So what happens when you get sick? I lost my appetite. The virus just took my appetite away. Was it the virus or was it your immune system? Okay. Well, why would the immune system do that? I got to keep my energy up. I need some Gatorade, or I need some kind of sugary drink, because you got to keep your energy there. And I go, no, that's the last thing you want, because the sugar weakens your immune system. Okay. Well, why would my immune system shut off my appetite? Because if you shut off your appetite, you stop eating carbs. Your body's going to go into ketosis. It's going to start burning fat, okay, for energy. And then at the end of the fat molecule, when you burn that thing, you have ketones. And the ketones, beta-hydroxybutyrate, it flips those genes. This is the epigenetics. And it starts flipping them. Well, one of them is called autophagy, okay? From this, the SIRT1 gets hit, and you end up having the cell cleaning up itself. So one of my patients from 2 decades ago during COVID, he sends me an article. It was a new study, SARS-CoV-2 and intermittent fasting, because he knew this was my area. And it says SARS-CoV-2 hates autophagy. We've known that for years, not with SARS-CoV-2, but we've known it, that when you have an infection, what's going on? COVID's inside. It's manufacturing its proteins, not just one, but it's multiple. It's manufacturing them out of your equipment, and they're not all put together yet. They're not assembled. So your cell's accumulating all this stuff inside. But if you're in autophagy mode, guess what? The cell says, wow, I need some energy. Hey, start stripping the wallpaper. I don't know. We'll do anything. Oh, hey, what are all these proteins doing over here? Oh, we don't need these. Okay, and in this case, it's SARS spike protein. And we're going to just put them in these little lysosomes, and we're going to dissolve them, and we're going to use them for energy. By the way, that was our materials that the virus used. Okay, it's using your own little building blocks to manufacture viral particles. So the virus is saying, hey, you're hurting me, okay? I can't replicate. And so that's the one thing you want to do is, okay, starve. It's not starve a cold, feed a fever. It's basically starve them out, okay? Your body has plenty of energy, and you can go for days. All you need is to keep up on your fluid, your electrolytes. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's good. I mean, did you catch that? The bottom line is, for a fever, is you don't feed it. Because now your body has to digest and assimilate and process this energy you just took in, and it takes away from fighting the disease.
Absolutely.
And also, this might ruffle some feathers, but you might not want to always run to that Tylenol to cure anything to take away the fever. There are exceptions, right? We had a 2-year-old. I'm not going to let her cry. But there are times if you let let it run its course versus trying to.
A little bit is okay. A lot, that's very uncomfortable. It's not necessary.
Yeah, exactly. Is there a good alternative to ketone IQ, which is the exogenous ketones that you can drink like this? As of now, I don't know of any. There
are alternatives, but you're asking me if there's good alternatives?
For most people, I wouldn't get caught up onto that. They're $5 for something like this. It's going to get expensive if you take 2 a day. You can put your body in ketosis. We just use it if we're like on the run and we can't eat or something.
And the reason I use it mostly is if I'm reading, studying, doing research, or giving talks like this, I want my brain to be sharp. I want to be alert. Well, it focuses the brain. I was sharing this with a patient about fasting, and she said, "Oh, doctor, you can stop right now. I'm embarrassed. I already know this." And I go, "You know about fasting?" "Oh, yeah. I think I put it in my book. It was, I was doing my oral dissertation at Oxford in the UK, and I go, PhD dissertation, really? And she goes, "Oh, yeah, so I put myself into a water fast." Why would she do that for her PhD dissertation? Because it gives you a super focused brain. Mm-hmm. That's what ketones do. And I was shocked. I go, "Wow, that's a first." And I said, "I bet everyone thought you were committing suicide." And they go, "Yeah, why would you do that before you're doing your most important dissertation?" And anyway, that's the point.
Well, I mean, it was all those Aristotle and all those who had their students fast for weeks. It's very common practice.
Hippocrates.
That's who it was.
He was a father of medicine. He used fasting as a treatment. They didn't know why it worked, but they knew it worked, and they described the effects. They were very good observationalists.
So this is a question. I'm not going to use the word, but it starts with VAC. And let's do this. Okay, because YouTube will take me off again. You know what I'm talking about? Or a 21 gauge right here. VAC. They said it out there. But the question is, do foods directly link to autism? I think, the food coloring and all that for sure. But let's throw in there too your opinions on the jab. Because I think sometimes it's, maybe a person would need to consider some, but we don't need all 44, whatever they are, and with the COVID and just being careful and sensitive to.
Well, this will probably be.
Because I don't know.
This will be pulled off. If I comment on it, they won't. They'll pull it off.
Okay. Well, we can say foods do affect autism, I think, or no? Let's use the word A.
No, it's what I mentioned about dysbiosis. I had a friend of my son's a few years ago. He says, he's doing his senior paper on at the university on autism and the microbiome. And I said, hey, that's great. He goes, "You know about it?" And I go, "Well, yeah, I know. It's nothing actually new." What he was saying, it takes 20 years sometimes, or 30 years sometimes, for the rest of the community. But they were looking at this decades ago. And there's a link between the microbiome. It's called the gut-brain connection, but the microbiome, this is your gut bacteria, and autism, Alzheimer's, depression, anxiety, various other mood disorders, schizophrenia included.
For sure.
It's not all the same, and I'm not saying, that's just the whole cause, but it actually contributes, and they've linked that to autism. But that's one of many things. If you go to a autism conference, you'll find that they talk about a number of things that linked. And even surprisingly, I think their number 3 was EMFs, which, what? Okay.
But kids have been on computers a lot more.
This is electromagnetic fields. Okay. And they're going, "Well, that's crazy." I go, "Well, yeah, but no one's going to talk about it because it's very threatening to the individual if they do." So, and I'm not an expert on that, so.
You said feed more proteins to people with cerebral palsy. What about kids? The same? I'm assuming so. I don't know. I don't remember you saying anything about cerebral palsy and protein. Did you?
No.
Well, let's just. Should people with cerebral palsy eat more protein? I don't know if that's good.
Well, it's not going to harm them. If anything,
but it's not the magic bullet.
No. I mean, you want adequate muscle function. So again, it all comes back to optimizing your mitochondria in every cell in your body. That includes the muscles. That includes the nerves.
Remember, the mitochondria is that little capsule-shaped thing in your cell that controls a lot of the health of the cell. That's a good question. For supplements, what would you recommend? The basic, like vitamins. I mean, if I'm thinking, of course, vitamin K, vitamin D, Is it D3,
Well,
B complex?
Okay, if I had one vitamin that, if I had nothing else and I was just going to pick one vitamin, and I didn't have access to the sun,
Oh, D3, yeah.
it's D3. And by the way, it's not a vitamin. It's a steroid hormone.
Yeah, it is a hormone.
It's built from, get this, cholesterol. So cholesterol is what you make all of your steroid hormones from.
Mm-hmm.
So your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone, your aldosterone, cortisone, all of those are built on the cholesterol molecule. So if you lower it too low, you start to have dysfunction. And so super, super, super important.
Do you use sunscreen? If you do, what kinds? Gotta be careful.
Okay, I get some sun, but then my wife says, "Okay, you hit your limit." And
I hear the same thing.
Okay, so I use some. No, but I don't use any of the EDCs, the endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs, and that's been well documented. When I started in medicine, normal sperm counts were from here to here.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Okay,
how much
and if you go below here, that's called infertility. Okay, so now normal sperm counts, this is the high, and this is the low. Oh, well, you mean this is an infertility? No, this is what they call normal now. Okay, and this is infertility. Well, how did that change? Well, it changed because of all of many factors, including the diet, but the endocrine disrupting chemicals, which things like, I don't want to mention brand names, but anyway, you can look this up, and you can look up safe sunscreens without EDCs. But there's a number of them, but they will affect you, and it gets absorbed through the skin, as you mentioned.
Well, yeah, the endocrine, maybe some of you don't know, the endocrine system is the system of ovaries, testicles, pituitary glands, the thyroid, very important system. And these chemicals that a lot of the kids are putting on as deodorant, on their skin, in their hair, it disrupts that. It disrupts the signal, the pathways for them to communicate with the body, and it's just, and that's what they're finding. It's just really the young generation, especially from all these products.
Yeah. So there are safe sunscreens. There's zinc. There's titanium.
That's what it was. I forgot the name. And
they're not the years ago, the zinc paste that you put it on and you turn white. And okay, it's kind of clear. You really have to rub it in well. It's a little bit harder than the others, but it does very effectively block a lot of that damaging. But you do need some sun, and vitamin D is the one vitamin I would go for. It's not a vitamin.
Does avocado oil cause insulin resistance? I would say it would be better to prevent it.
I've used it for patients, and I said, that meal that you just described, and you told me what your CGM, the monitor on his arm, I said, you told me you spiked up to 180. I said, take that exact same meal, go home and add half an avocado to it, and then show me your curve. He comes back, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. It wouldn't even hit 150, the same exact thing. And I said, what it was? Well, it was the fat? And I said, well, the fat was good because it brings satiety, satiation. I'm satisfied. I'm not hungry. That's one of the problems when you go high carb. You will never be satisfied. Mm-mm. You could put some healthy fat in a meal, you'll feel satisfied. But I said, that's not the reason. The reason is the avocado is just loaded, chock full of fiber. And the fiber, remember the analogy with the stomach, with all those above ground vegetables? The fiber is what slows the glucose absorption.
Yeah. And probably one of the highest things that raises insulin on the glycemic index is probably plain white bread, or something like that. If you put like some grass-fed butter and avocado on that, it slows it down considerably,
right,
the insulin rate. So that's why fat is also really good. This whole thing of getting rid of fat, I mean, we really swallowed it hook, line, and sinker on that one. When it comes to alcohol addiction, fasting can affect recovery in a positive way. Absolutely. There's actually that book by Herbert Shelton. In other words, that's how they used to handle a lot of chronic alcoholism, is put them away into a fasting clinic for weeks, and it would just take time for that addiction to finally break. Unless you want to add to that, but I think
No.
Let's see. I would grab Dr. Paul's book. My books are free too. How would you go into water fasting if you've never done it? And how would you lean back into eating? We break down all that because you want to be careful about refeeding syndrome. If you're on a 7-8 day water fast and you start eating normally again, your potassium, your sodium, all the levels, your electrolytes are off, your microgut biome is you can get really sick. I got real sick. Like I was in bed for a day hurting.
Right.
But the best way is to just, in the past you could just go for it, but now we're so addicted to things, you might want to wean off caffeine, sugar, processed foods, and then jump into a water fast. Try one day, try 24 hours. I've known people, the longest water fast ever in recorded history is about 352 days or so, 380 days. Man in Scotland, the doctor's supervision, they had him on multi-minerals, vitamins. He went from like 400 pounds to 180, only gained back 10 of those pounds at 195, maintained 195. Because the body, you're not starving, the body's still eating. It's eating your stored energy. And so, but I would recommend walking into it slowly. And his book's good for, showing you how long. Even try 2 day, 3 day. Just see how the body's feeling.
I tell people don't jump into the deep end right away. Just do it gradually and a little bit at a time. Try it out. Try extending your fasting window a couple hours, and then a little bit more and a little bit more, but you don't have to do it every day all the time.
And then what's the best way to slow down or start to prevent? We might have already answered this on dementia, but I hate to keep saying this, but fasting is probably one of the best ways to begin. But you do have to go deep. You have to take it to the Lord. The longer you go fasting, the deeper the healing's going to be. However, you have to balance to health. That's why doctor supervision is good. I mean, if your heart's racing and you can't sleep well and you're causing more damage, maybe you've got some liver issues or kidney, remember, those are going to be taxed because your body's removing all the toxins. So it is a balancing act. But is there any other thing you know of for reversing or slowing down dementia other than extended fasting?
If we're talking about
diet, of course.
Yeah, if we're talking about Alzheimer's dementia specifically, but all types of dementia are going to respond to optimizing mitochondrial function. Even you have Parkinsonian dementia. Well, guess what? Parkinsonism is also linked with mitochondrial dysfunction. Okay, and so if you wanted to look up or get a book on Alzheimer's and what we've been finding out, it's not. It's not fully accepted yet, but there's a neurologist out of L.A., Dale Bredesen, Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote a book, The End of Alzheimer's, and it's very good. And some of the things that they did and found in actually reversing some of this, and it has to do with
insulin.
Well, the ketosis.
Ketosis, yeah. Type 3 diabetes is what they're calling it.
Yeah. And so reversing this, it was pretty amazing. In fact, he has some material in there about that MRI volumetric measuring of the hippocampi, and that's impossible. You can't reverse Alzheimer's. Well, he had independent radiologists review the ones before and after, and he had to have them read blind because when they didn't do it blindly, they were fudging it, and they're saying, well, we made a mistake. It must be this way. And because they say it's just impossible. You can't have increased hippocampal growth. So I'm just saying that is a good resource if you want to look that up.
And when I dove into this a while back pretty deep, but when they'd actually scan the brain, I don't know how many people are aware, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, with Alzheimer's and things like dementia, there's sheaves on the nerves of the brain that begin, for lack of a better word, the toxins begin to bind to them or cloud them or build up. They break through the blood-brain barrier and they begin to latch onto the brain, so it's not as efficient as it once was. So by autophagy and fasting, it can begin to, what fasting does, it needs food, it needs fuel. And the way you're designed, God designed you, it's not going to go eat your heart muscle and your liver and your kidney and even your muscle. It goes and looks for these proteins that aren't being used, or these things on the brain, or the different areas that it can begin breaking down for fuel.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Dale Bredesen, Bredesen, I think.
Order it for me too, Virginia.
The end of Alzheimer's.
The end of Alzheimer's. But and remember, there's a lot of good research out there, but and I want to be careful what I say, because there is an agency out there, big, farms, that, I mean, I remember studying, is it Latrell that comes from, Latrell that comes from it's a little bit of cyanide
apricot
from the apricot seed. And there's tons of research behind. That's actually what Paul Newman was doing for his cancer. And he didn't die from that. He died from the surgery. He was actually getting better. And there's case study. It's this little bit of niacin or cyanide in the apricot seed, in the way it can go and begin to consume the cancer cells. But they don't want any of this, because you're getting away from the standard protocol of chemotherapy and radiation, which kills you anyway. And they're not looking at natural, I hope I didn't open the can of worms on that one.
Yeah.
But, we could even talk about methylene blue and the mitochondria health and that. But anyway, I like this question. How do you get rid of chronic inflammation? What diet is best for that Linda? In other words, and I know her struggle, that's so confusing, but really, from your perspective, what diet is best? Because even meat can be inflammatory in some cases. So
all the diets that we talked about, the things, all of those factors that we were talking about were decreasing inflammation in your body, and it's going with a healthy diet. But there are particular factors. It depends on the individual. And keep in mind that inflammation is not just one pathway. There are dozens and dozens of inflammatory pathways that are involved with genes. And it's not just, well, I took an anti-inflammatory, I took ibuprofen, so that should take care of it. I go, oh my gosh. If you've got, several hundred different pathways, and you've got this one little COX enzyme that's inhibited, that's not it. So getting back to what's the optimal diet? Anti-inflammatory diet would be mostly a whole food diet, and using the extra added tool of intermittent fasting can turn off a lot of these inflammatory pathways. And that's what's crazy, is the little beta-hydroxybutyrate, that's one of the ketones that's produced. It flips those gene switches off. And that's why I mentioned that the rheumatoid arthritis, and I have some with lupus and other autoimmune diseases, that is pure inflammation that they have. But they felt great. Wow. Hippocrates is one of the first ones to notice that, and he documented that they put these people on, and they described what their joints looked like, how they presented, morning stiffness, symmetrical swelling. Anyway, the profile was that of rheumatoid arthritis, and he says, we put these people on a water fast, and boom, everything goes down. They didn't know why, they just knew that it did, okay? And it wasn't until this last, I should say 50 years that we've actually come into this. And even in the last 20 years, a lot of the research on ketones, because when I started this in the 80s, we didn't have this information. We didn't know about this. But we were finding out that all this happened. And I was noticing it on patients before any of this. They just go, all my swelling, all my joints, everything is good. The disease was reversing. But I wasn't treating them specifically at the time for that particular disease or inflammation. I was just trying to help them with weight loss.
Would you recommend, this person can talk to you afterwards too, of course, but maybe water fast and then introduce some things, like see if nuts do it, and then give it time to
Well,
bring some,
the other thing is getting, just even food sensitivity testing done as just one extra rock to look under, because that's easily overlooked, but it's almost too easy when you fix that.
Yeah. Okay, so I know who this person is. Definitely talk to Dr. Paul afterwards. Thomas kids, you guys are being so good. Be a good example for mine. Good job. And we're going to go quick to get through these, so maybe just a quick answer. And if you want further, let us know. Let Dr. Paul know. What foods would you suggest to bring down high blood pressure? I think we talked about that. Whole God-given foods, and fasting and losing weight. Yep, okay. How often should one fast if proper nutrition is already in place, aside from spiritual reasons? So if you're just doing it for physical reasons, like health and longevity, and I know there's different opinions, like Dr. Walter Longo here at USC, he recommends like a 5-day fast every couple months. I don't know if there's an exact number.
Yeah, and we don't have any real super studies and data on that, but I tell my patients, look, hey, what's it going to hurt to do a 3-day water fast once a month?
Yep.
I go, well, that's a long time. And I go, I did it when I was 19. I did it for like 4 days. It wasn't a dare. It was a challenge. We were actually reading, the book, you have it, I think, on God's Chosen Fast.
Oh, Arthur Wallace.
Yeah.
Arthur Wallace, God's Chosen Fast.
I was doing a Bible study. I brought this book in, and everyone read it, and so we said, okay, who's willing to do this? Well, there were only 4 of us that were willing to do it, and we met 4 days later at a little breakfast place, and we were shocked at. None of us had any appetite at that point. It disappeared after the 2nd day. 3rd day was fine. 4th day, wow, here we are eating. I guess we have to. I don't feel like I need it, but we're supposed to recharge our batteries. Well, when I left, I felt like I just drained them. I felt like a slug. My head was foggy, and it's probably all the carbs in the breakfast.
Yeah,
had no idea, but it's not that hard to do.
Yeah, in my opinion, it would be as much as necessary. But you don't want to fast, once and then blow it for a couple months. It's a fasted lifestyle. A.W. Tozer said, I fast just enough to let my stomach know who the boss is. So that's a good one. Diagnosed with osteoporosis, and my doctor wants to put me on, is it Tymolus? T-Y-M-O-L-O-S. So I would talk to Dr. Paul after this about, her question is how to regain the bone density without being on meds. And maybe just your quick answer. I know, can we actually take enough calcium in, or is that a myth?
No, that's just one of many factors.
Yeah.
There's other nutrients that you can take and optimize, and you want to make sure your vitamin D is optimal. And I'm going to recommend a level between 50 and 100. Optimal would be 60 to 80. But you to optimize the calcium absorption, and then you have other minerals that are also going to play a role in bone. But again, it depends on whether the person was hormonal, menopausal. Various things like that. What is their exercise? What did they do before? So there's a lot of things to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to take it to the Lord and pray, because He'll show you stuff. I remember He would show me some things. People would go, don't do that. You're going to lose too much muscle. Well, I don't think God's concerned about muscle, right? If He's wanting you to do something. But have you heard of polycosanol to treat high cholesterol? I think we kind of discussed how important actually cholesterol is, and high cholesterol is kind of more of a myth.
Yeah. So the mantra was just use anything you can to just decrease cholesterol. As I mentioned, if you don't take in cholesterol, your body manufactures it. Well, how does it know how much to make? Depending
what your need is.
What your need is, and so you're taking in fast carbs. But as I mentioned, carbs drive LDL cholesterol, just like fat does, but it's the type. And getting back to the glycocalyx thing, if you spike your glucose, that spiking of the glucose, that's meaning the glucose is going into your bloodstream so fast, that actually thins out your glycocalyx. And as you spike that glucose, you're spiking insulin. If you're spiking insulin all the time, that means that insulin is pushing all that extra glucose that you can't possibly burn in the next 2 hours. It's pushing it all inside the cell.
So year after year, it begins to wear down
so
the lining.
You're pushing all the glucose inside the cell. The cell's going, enough. I can't burn this. So I'm going to shove you guys out, and insulin's going to convert you into triglycerides. Well, where does that go? Well, triglycerides are fats, and it goes into your fat cells or into your liver. So we have an epidemic of fatty liver disease from eating junk food, fast food. And so these people are doing this all the time. So what does the cell do? I'm kind of paraphrasing science here, but anyway, the cell shuts down. The insulin receptors don't work anymore the way they did. It's harder. It's almost like the cell saying, I don't like all this glucose coming inside. Please shut the door, make it harder. Mm-hmm. So it's building a barricade. And the next thing, you have more and more insulin being released by your pancreas because it has to get the glucose that you're spiking all the time out of the bloodstream. So what ends up happening is with all that glucose inside, you're damaging your mitochondria. And mitochondrial dysfunction is what is behind insulin resistance, not to confuse you. But if you go in the back door with the fats, it causes mitochondrial dysfunction, as we mentioned with the seed oils. That increases insulin resistance because it's damaging your mitochondria. One quick note on this mitochondria. Your Ferrari has engine, there's an engine under your hood, okay? And you take in these hydrocarbons and you're mixing it with air and a little spark and all this energy is released and you're going down. Well, the same thing happens. That's what a mitochondria is. Mm-hmm. You're taking hydrocarbons, fats, okay? Well, carbohydrates, sugars, but you're releasing that carbon-carbon energy and you're combining it with an oxygen molecule. Remember, the oxygen goes in there and it accepts an electron. That's your spark. Bink. And the next thing you know it, ATP, and that is why you're putting down the road. You have energy. The same thing. So you have trillions of these little mitochondria factories, and that's what's behind your life and existence.
Perfect. 3 more and we're out of here. Cindy won my wife has something we bought. Maybe Dana will want it for bench pressing and lifting for shoulders. I don't remember the exact name on it. Oh yeah, I've heard of this. What are your thoughts on oxalates in vegetables? I see those guys, vegetables are trying to kill you. The reason I say that is there's small things in vegetables, phytochemicals, that are God-given to keep away little tiny insects. And those same chemicals in our body act as hormesis, and our response to that is a lot different. It's in a positive light. So these guys, I don't buy into any of that.
It's all about balance. And then you have people that say everything is about lectins. Look, if I pin these guys to the wall, can you eliminate all lectins out of your diet?
No.
No, that's not possible. I go, yeah, but you make it sound like that's the whole goal is eliminate all lectins. I go, you can't do that. Everything is about balance.
So oxalates in vegetables, you can bring it up to him, Ray, if you want. Oxalates in vegetables, again, back to Genesis, when we have the Word of God, God said, I gave you all these vegetables with oxalates. Now, the oxalates might have came after the fall to keep the insects. Who knows? That's complicated. But bottom line is, it sounds like you're oxalates at a very, I don't know, I've eaten.
Oxalates, it's oxalic acid. Anyway, it's natural. It's one of many, okay? But you can get an imbalance of that.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. Too much broccoli. I don't have that problem, though. Hold on, let me get through these. What are the healthy alternatives to the harmful seed oils? I think we mentioned that. Avocado. Even I've written stuff on avocado, but if it's organic, fresh avocado, cold pressed. Cold press is it's not being heated and treated. It's cold pressed olive oil, MCT oil, coconut oil, ghee, grass-fed butter, tallow, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we used to use a lot of these saturated fats in the diet. What did our great grandfathers, great grandparents eat? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they had a super high caloric intake. We've learned that our metabolism has slowed down tremendously. Okay. Oh, well, that's because we're not as active. Well, true to a degree, but we found out we're actually fairly close to them. So they were eating huge amounts of food. Their metabolism was much higher, and they didn't have the diseases that we had, and yet they were eating all of these things. Remember back what I mentioned about 65 onward, everything just started going up. And the rest of the planet, by the way, did not. Not all countries have this. So people think what we're looking at here in America is endemic to mankind. It's not.
Two more, and then we'll get, if you want to walk back to Pastor Abram, he's got the microphone. He'll be standing in the back. You can ask it. Can children, well, we want to get it on the Q&A recording. Can children from age 7 and up fast? My thoughts on, I would not have kids fast because they're still growing and they still need the nutrients. However, if they're sick, I think it'd be good to, if they can, maybe give it a day or two on that, use wisdom. But.
Yeah, I don't see it as being necessary at all with children, but let me reframe that. In many countries, not everyone has availability of 3 square meals a day, okay? And sometimes they will eat, and then they will have periods of not eating, okay? And then they eat. And they become accustomed and used to that. Oh, but they're starving. I go, no, they're not really starving. People think they're starving, but
nutrition.
They're confusing that. I go, they have plenty of fuel, but I'm not encouraging people to do that to their children.
Yep, true. And then I think we answered this. Can you reverse non-alcoholic cirrhosis? A lot of studies show you can, depending on how advanced it is really the key with any type of disease. Is there enough type of fasting and nutrition that can ward off? Even in fasting, your liver can reproduce a lot of the cells.
Except that with cirrhosis, you have replacement of the normal hepatocytes with scar tissue, and that's
hard to reverse.
Cirrhosis means scar, and think of cirrus clouds. That's the same root word. Anyway, streaky. This is all scarring. And so once you burn out a certain amount of hepatocytes, it's very difficult to get recovery of that.
Yeah. In other words, the damage has been done. And I think we answered this. What about a 16-year-old fasting? I would take it to the Lord. You can talk to my daughter. She did a water fast at 15, 16. I didn't want her doing it. She was 2 weeks in. I'm like, you look like you lost some weight. She goes, yeah, I'm fasting. I'm like, okay, well, you need to stop this Saturday. And she goes, well, Dad, I think God wants me to go longer. I'm like, I don't know about that. But I monitored her. I could tell her energy, I could tell her elevated heart rate, palpitations, sleep. I kind of knew what to look for. She just was doing fantastic. I mean, it was fantastic. But talk to her. I pray about it, use wisdom. And my thought is any teenager still growing, I would try to avoid it. Yeah, I like this one, Virginia. I was thinking that too. Did she leave? She might have left. What's your idea of a little bit of dairy? So for me, I would say I would have some goat milk, maybe mixed with some protein powder, and maybe a little bit of butter later in the day.
Or a little bit of little bit of cheese. Okay. Or feta cheese. Okay. And
so not every meal, right?
Yeah. And again, that's back to the whole Mediterranean idea. And the yogurt, cultured, milk products, kefir, but you can get cultured, all sorts of other cultured coconut milk or almond milk.
And we're worried about raw milk, but no problem with Skittles, right? I mean, so I would be careful, but raw milk is, I mean, that's how we were designed, and that's how it's produced for thousands of years. The pasteurization process came about when somebody got sick, and some of the cows were diseased. It's not anytime they do things like that, the idea is not obviously bad. I mean, they're trying to help people, but you basically, you know more than me, you kill all the good enzymes in the pasteurization process. You're basically drinking sugar water. However, I still have whole organic milk that's pasteurized if I don't have anything else, maybe a little. But it's impossible. It's really hard to get raw milk right now anyway, and unless you go directly to some people. But for the average person, it's not real challenging.
Yeah.
It's real challenging.
Leave it at that.
Yeah, leave it at that, because we might get kicked off YouTube again. All right, let's go for your question real quick.
All right. Thank you guys for your time and your knowledge today. I know I appreciate it. Question is, with vegetables, the pesticides, I'm really confused. Above ground, below ground, the soil. It confuses me. I never know whether I should be eating all these or not eating them. Are they sprayed right now? Don't get broccoli from Walmart. Blah, blah, blah. You just don't. How do you be healthy when the soil isn't healthy?
That's very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I can go 1 minute and then you take the rest.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our big challenge. And of course, and again, what I'm talking about, not everybody can do, right? With the average person, like it'd be nice to have a farmer, we know, or a like down in Valencia, they have those, or even on Lancaster Boulevard sometimes, those farmers mart. But I go and ask them, they still use things. And so what she's talking about is once the glyphosate and fertilizers with chemicals get in the soil, it's really hard it's going to get into the plant. And so for us, like avocado, banana, we don't have to be organic, even though we want to. It's more expensive sometimes, but we try to find organic, fresh fruit and vegetables that's organic. Now, that's no guarantee either, but, at least it's a better choice. So even whether it's on top or underneath, trying to find, and I can sometimes, like Sprouts right now has the big thing of organic blueberries, 3 of those for $12. And that's a pretty good price compared to other ones too. And if finances are a problem, it's funny if you cut out Starbucks, this treat, that treat, this stop, this deli, this, if we cut out our addictions, you'll find that you have a lot more money left over for the things that are important.
For eating.
But what do you do with her question on the...
as far as what, above ground, below ground, and all the vegetables?
Well, pesticides, I guess.
Pesticides,
not get too worried.
Yeah, no, and my gosh. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so, ideally, the chicken farmer, and you get your chickens there, or you get your eggs there. But as far as the pesticides, that's very hard, and even the vegetable washes that are out there, it's very hard to get rid of all that. It is super difficult. As far as the glyphosate, and you have in this country, Monsanto rules, and they basically took over so many different crops. And the farmers that didn't want to go that route, they were forced to, because all the crops were blowing their seeds into the other farmers, and they took them to court, and so they were forced into buying Monsanto Roundup Ready whatever, and it's really, glyphosate causes many, many different health problems, and it's been linked with cancer. There is no safe level of glyphosate in the human body. Show me a study. But glyphosate is that's Roundup anyway. And Quaker Oats bought into Roundup Ready oats. They're 100% Roundup Ready, and their products have been tested, yes, and there's glyphosate. Oh, but it's just a little bit of glyphosate. Okay. No, it just breaks my heart. Living in New Zealand, they banned, they would not allow any GMO propagation there.
And Roundup Ready means they've genetically modified the oats so that you can spray pesticides on the oats and it will not kill the oats because they've been genetically modified. So they are Roundup Ready. They're ready to receive the Roundup, and it won't kill them. It will kill all the weeds around them. And then we consume that. But we have to remember, too, what always helps me is trusting in God. God knows these chemicals. The human body's incredibly built to cleanse through the liver, through the kidney. The best thing to do is get the weight off of the body, get healthy, incorporate fasting into your lifestyle. So when you do take in the eggs or this, or the glyphosate, or the meat, your body is already in a state where it can really cleanse even better, more efficiently.
Right.
God knew about all this beforehand.
Yeah, and the fasting is a great way of doing a cleanse.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
and absolutely the pesticides and a lot of these other chemicals and hormones, etc., they end up getting stored in fat, and so when you start burning these fat,
You get sick.
layers. Well, you might get sick when those things come out, but but you're flushing them out of your system. You're getting rid of them.
And I would definitely choose organic tea and coffee because the pesticide, herbicide, fungicide is sprayed directly on the leaf, and it goes directly in the leaf to being packaged to your cup. There's not even a cleansing process usually. So you want to use some wisdom there. 2 questions back, and then we'll finish up.
Yeah, regarding the replacement of the seed oils, we're using olive oil exclusively now. But my concern is I've heard some things about the heat resistance on some of the olive oils, and I guess that's the main propaganda push on using seed oils is because they're heat resistance, they don't break down. What are your thoughts on the olive oil used for higher temperature cooking? And let me know what your concerns are, if any. If not, then we'll keep using it.
Well, you can go on this, but I always look at, again, creation, like how God designed us. God allowed the children of Israel to make the olive oil, and the olive oil was used for cooking. So I don't look too much into that because we're running out of options for oils.
And so again, you don't want to you want to avoid the high heat. You
Frying.
Definitely don't want to be doing deep frying. Stir fry, and you're not generating a lot of heat. Yeah, the olive oil, the avocado oil won't take as much. It's the smoke point or whatever the
Smoke point, yeah.
But the coconut oil is some medium chain triglyceride. It's a saturated fat, but it has a higher.
It smokes easier, does it?
Huh?
Does it smoke easier?
Well, yeah, but you can still use that. I'm saying you can use that coconut oil for that. And then the other, oh my gosh, ghee, butter, saturated fat. Oh, well, you can't use that. Tallow. Okay, can't use that. Well, this is what we were using. When we took that out of our diet, a lot of things fell apart on us. And so there are plenty of countries that use that still, and they don't have the health problems that we have because of that. Will that causes heart disease? Well, no, we'll say different.
Yeah. Matthias, did that answer it? I guess basically keep the heat down and cook longer. Abram, any other questions? We good?
Yes, one more question. Actually, Dr. Paul, we have a few that we'll probably talk to you afterwards, but I have a question from my wife. She said, what are your thoughts, Dr. Paul, on eating, or Pastor, on eating according to your blood type?
Popular book 20 years ago. But I'll let him handle that one. I'm not.
All right. Okay. So when I first came across that, I go, oh, really? Well, that's interesting. Let me look at. I know my blood type, so let me see what they say I should be eating or not eating. And I looked at that and I go, those are all my favorite foods. I really like those. I go, do they make me feel bad? No, I don't have any problems with energy. I have a clear head. I don't have any inflammation in my body that I'm aware of. And gee, and Lord, why would you do that? You didn't give me an owner's manual saying, the such and such chapter of the Bible saying, well, no. I don't believe in it. Okay, now some of the times they say, well, I eliminated this, but again, the reason something might make someone feel better isn't necessarily the reason it's touted. Okay, this person had a problem with whatever food, or this food, or that food. And so he goes around telling, this diet worked for me because it eliminated this food. Okay, because it was because of my blood type. It wasn't because of his blood type, it was just he had a problem with that particular food. And so, again, when you scrutinize it a little more and look at any kind of studies looking into it, there's no substance. So that's my response.
So yeah, I guess don't eat. Doesn't matter if you eat right for your blood type.
Yeah, I don't.
Next question.
What blood type was Jesus?
Almost done.
Yeah.
One more. This is from Layla.
Mike, we're almost done. If you want to let him know one more. Okay.
What are your thoughts, Dr. and Pastor, on magnesium supplements for sleep?
Magnesium is going to affect the body depending on how it's, like if it's magnesium citrate, it's going to more work as a laxative. If it's a different type of magnesium, so the form of magnesium is going to affect the body differently. But beyond that, I'll let you take it.
All right, so there's magnesium citrate, magnesium sulfate, magnesium chloride, magnesium oxide, magnesium threonate, glycinate, bisglycinate. There's all these forms. Okay, I like glycinate or bisglycinate. It's actually the same molecule. It has a high bioavailability as far as absorption, and it doesn't cause the GI problems. If someone is having problems with their bowels, I'm going, maybe we'll use a little bit of the citrate or the sulfate. Magnesium oxide, what's that? Milk of magnesia. Okay. Oh, what is it? Oh, that's a laxative. Okay, yes, exactly. But most of the population tends to be a little bit magnesium deficient, although it's kind of hard to prove that. But studies have shown that, we really don't take in enough magnesium. But I do use magnesium for many things. I might use it for migraine prophylaxis and trying to decrease the frequency of migraines. I might use it for lowering blood pressure to a degree. It has an element on that. It actually has antiarrhythmic effects on the heart. I used it for that. It has muscle relaxation properties, and I've used it tremendously for that. It also helps with sleep. So many times they'll put magnesium into
L-theanine,
a sleep aid. And then it also is a calming mineral, like calcium, but it has calming effects on your moods. So anxiety, okay. I put my patients on plenty of that. Let's see, what have I left out? Anyway, it has a lot of uses.
It would depend. Did you say it's Layla's question?
Yeah, I'm not sure what for. I'm just reading the text.
Yeah, she might want to even take like electrolyte that has magnesium, potassium, sodium, and get it all covered. So I think we're done. Hour and 5 minutes over. You guys are troopers. All right. So let me pray. Do you have any closing thoughts? You're probably pretty good.
We could go all day.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. That's the key. Just take the whole foods in moderation.
Simple and balanced.
Yeah. Life-giving food in moderation and move more. Get rid of the addictions. Okay, fire away. Last.
I had my gallbladder.
Gallbladder removed. Okay.
What's a good diet to do for that? And I also have diverticulitis.
Okay.
The seeds are bad, right? Is it because that's what they say?
I'll let you tackle this one.
You're asking if the seeds are bad for
we're not supposed to eat seeds.
Walnuts and almonds.
Well, yes and no. Back, 30, 40 years ago, I was telling everyone, you can't eat these seeds, you can't eat these seeds, and if you eat this, okay. Well, I have had some patients over the years that every time they ate peanuts or something, they'd get a flare-up in their diverticulosis, they'd get a case of diverticulitis. But we learned that it's not necessarily needed to put everyone on a seed restriction. They don't all have that. But if they do, and they can tie it in, yeah, I had this and I had sesame seeds, okay. But it doesn't always happen. And so I learned years back, okay, I'm not going to restrict someone's diet on that, okay? And your other question was the gallbladder, and well, your gallbladder is to store, the bile acids. Anyway, it's and those are mostly, what are they made of? Cholesterol. Okay, another important use of cholesterol in the body. But that's what gallstones are made of, is cholesterol. Mm-hmm. But when you take that out, what's that for? The bile acids are to emulsify fat. You can't absorb fat without having enough of those bile acids or salts. Anyway, once you emulsify it, you can absorb. So does that mean I don't have any? No, it's a storage pouch for extra. So not only when you eat something, and cholecystokinin, it's a hormone, it's released, and it causes your liver to contract and just kind of squeeze down the bile. And at the same time, the gallbladder contracts. So, but the gallbladder in your case was dysfunctional, and so it was taken out. Might have had stones or blockage there. Anyway, taking that out doesn't mean you don't have any bile. It just means you don't have enough. So you try to limit the amount of fat you take in at one time. Otherwise, you're going to have it's going to be coming out the other end, not absorbed. It floats. It stinks. Okay. And so, yeah, people have that problem, but you learn to adapt. So you can't have too much fat.
True. Yeah.
At one time.